Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tess Shuman. I'm the president of More Competency. And we're here to talk about the jump, Civil 3D, points, and all those things. A couple of basic things that you should understand: that Civil 3D out of the box is pretty hard to get running, costs you a lot of money. We have a product called Instant Basic, which we will be looking at and working with, that offers simply ridiculous productivity in Civil 3D. On top of that, we have this thing called the Jump Kit, the whole Jump platform, right? Couple of 5,000 styles on top of the couple of thousand that you get in Instant Basic. So pretty much, if you need it, it's there. We have a product called the Symbol Set. So if you already have your own templates but want to be NCS compliant because you want to work on government projects or oil companies and all those kinds of folks, right? We have a Symbol Set that includes, 1,000 point styles for Civil 3D with all kinds of graphics and all that stuff. And because, hey, everybody works in AutoCAD applications, got to dumb things down to AutoCAD, which is one of the things we're talking about. We supply a block library, which you can get like a site license, run it, and everything from LT 2010, Sahel 10 to 12, drawing support, all that kind of stuff, with all the graphics that sit behind the typical NCS stuff that you got to be compliant with. The idea of IOB, just to make this simple, is really simple. Right? IOB allows you to work the same and intelligently publish your projects on demand into multiple jurisdictions, multiple kinds of content. And, we like to joke around and say that maybe that makes IOB an iPod, right? Right. Okay, so the key here issue with the jump is it really is a higher standard to build on. We work on that whole model-based software idea, and we employ known standards. Why? Because it's the path of least resistance to some form of sanity for all of us, right? We support multiple versions, so 10, 11, and 12 actually in the NCS 4.0, and in the real world, projects really do upgrade so that you're not chained to, I'm in 11, but I really need some of that stuff in 12 in my current project. How you do that, work through all that stuff. Our products, every release for now 4 releases in a row, we had on the day of release, working product that ran, and all the styles, and all the fixes, and they were all done. And in between times, we keep making the product better and better and better. We've literally probably doubled the size of the product in the last 12 months. And it's pretty price performance tough to beat. We allow you to implement Civil 3D rapidly and adopt it across a wide range of locations and different types of people, everybody from survey to the people doing sanitary sewer analysis type stuff. And the ROI, if you do the financials, right, is measured in days, not months, not weeks, but days, and has the lowest cost of ownership and maintenance that we know of, and it's literally only pennies a day. So if you want to talk to us about it, we're always here and happy to talk to you. We got an 800 phone number, amazing. You can find out about us up on the web, and we'll be using some of those resources, and there are a lot of resources up there. So we're here to talk about exporting point features in AutoCAD Civil 3D. This is kind of a rocket science thing because point features are a bit different. So I have this question, and I make the statement that points are sort of mythic in Civil 3D. Is there such a thing as a point in Civil 3D? And I could ask for a raise of hands, and everybody raise their hands, and you'd be dead wrong. Okay, there is no such thing as a point in AutoCAD Civil 3D. If you want to talk about it in physics terms, would then be a singularity, so to speak. In other words, a point all by itself in Civil 3D is pretty dang meaningless. And in fact, if you thought about it for a second, you'd go, 1 point doesn't get me much except for a location in space, and the meaning of all our plans and every surface and every way that we use points is actually related to collections of points. And that is fundamental to how Civil 3D approaches points, which is radically different than the way that AutoCAD could approach points or even LDT. So that makes points a little bit mind-boggling. Okay, they look almost the same, but they don't work the same at all. So my point here is really simple, that a point in AutoCAD Civil 3D doesn't exist. It's always in a collection of something. So points are always collected. Pretty much you could have a point collection of one, but it's still a collection and obeying the rules of collections. And that shows up in the tool space. It shows up everywhere, but it's really never said. If you read the documentation, you'd never find that statement made. Okay, so that means that when we get to exporting stuff, importing stuff, and all those things, which Civil 3D is phenomenally better at than anything else that we had in the past, it's so phenomenally better, it's completely mind-boggling. So we're going to take a look at some of those processes and those sorts of things in today's session. So, the key issue is to understand how the point features are different, and the whole label style annotative engine is so much different from Land Desktop, but almost looks the same. Autodesk policy sort of, or their process has been, name it the same, but do it in a completely different way and therefore befuddle everybody. And I would safely say, working with lots and lots of clients, survey design people, this is befuddling. Something as simple as I need to get my points out and get them out, is easy or difficult depending upon how much you've gone through. So we're going to kind of look at some methods for point data export. Couldn't cover all the 1,000 ways probably that you can get point data outside of Civil 3D. But the key point I do want to make, and we'll reference often today, is you got to give people exactly what they need. The better you get and figure out what they really need, not what you think they need, but what they really, really need, is the easiest way to do it. And Civil 3D is incredibly good at this. The other important thing is to recognize that in Civil 3D, you sort of act like a director of a movie. And you have these actors, and some of them are bad actors, and let's just say that the point data are actors. And they work for a pretty complex union environment, right? Where they got to obey the rules of description keys and they got to obey the rules of point groups. And often those conflict in some madness way, and they're totally subject to your whim. So if you don't have a plan, in other words, a script and a set of scenes like you'd make a movie, then Civil 3D will annoy you, frustrate you, and drive you crazy. So we're going to look at this dumbed down process of point export. But before we do, come on, let's kind of look at the fundamentals of how Civil 3D handles points and what they are and how they might work. So we're going to hop over, a simple drawing, and we've got lots of ways to get points in here. And unfortunately, as I asked her my first question, what is a point and what do we mean by a point, is a confusing question in Civil 3D. It was confusing before. We had points that exist in surfaces, which may be related to points if we use the LDT context in our old point database outside, but may or may not be related to it anymore. We have these things called COLO points in Civil 3D, which are the point feature, and then we have survey points, and if I keep pointing it out, we will find that there are lots and lots of other points. So fundamentally, though, we have ways of bringing in points. One of the classic ways is, hey, I have a point file out there. Okay, so we bring up the points toolbar, right? And in 11 and 12, you get this nifty box, right? and we say, hey, we want to go out, grab points, and I have publish points and publish point data, and that is an extremely important little idea in Civil 3D. You're always working towards, hey, what am I really going to publish? Instead of, I'm going to give them everything and let them deal with it. We got a lot of ways to publish this thing. We could give them a CSV file, okay, or import a CSV file, and that may be what you get from a survey organization. So we could take a look at that thing, and hey, I better make sure I'm pulling this from the right place. Okay, and hey, I want all my topo points, and I got stuff from our aerial surveyor, and oh my gosh, this is Windows, so I could actually open this thing and open them both, in fact, and take at them, and Excel opens and all that stuff, and so I can actually see what I get there before I get there, which is a wonderful thing. So I don't need either of those files open. Just wanted to show you a simple CSV file. I could have opened this in Notepad and take a look, make sure I'm bringing in this, and I could bring in multiple ones at once. Let's just just bring in the topo points, just to keep this a little bit simple here. And Civil 3D will make some assessment. I have a nice new filtering feature here where I could say, these are the only, formats I really care about and the way I really look, and Civil 3D will give you a, quick peek at the first 5 to 10 records. And, at this point I can do things which I've been able to do for quite a while, make a point group, if the data file could contain coordinate transformation and elevation changes, those are also possible here. When in doubt, don't check this unless you read the help file and understand what it really means, because you could wreck your data and not recognize it for quite a while. So we're just pouring in to wherever the state of my drawing was, a bunch of points, and it's Civil 3D. Of course, I can do zoom window, but I'm smart. I can zoom to all those things, and all kinds of marvelous stuff happens. And because of some magic in the back end called description keys, we immediately get, symbols of some sort or another, and things like scaled trees and all the stuff that used to be blocks, but now are blocks wrapped in point styles, and things look like something, but maybe they don't really look like what I wanted them to look like. And be honest with you, at this moment in time, inside Civil 3D, they aren't right, because the point groups, right, have not been updated. So one of your jobs as the director is that you have to tell the producer to whack everybody in line. And, that's the update point groups command. And if you don't do that, as you can see, some things change instantly. Notice also, I have no labels. Not a single label, not a single piece of text. I also am not seeing, and if you caught it before, there were a few points that appeared here, and there are probably other points that currently are in my drawing and exist as things in my drawing, but don't look like anything. So one of the wonders of Civil 3D is that we have this style controlled environment. So we can make it look like anything we want. And that's controlled, over by the settings tab, right, by this wonderful thing in part called description key sets. And they say, hey, we're just going to go and look at simple IOB1 here. And if it matches, and we've all been doing this for a real long time, it's going to do some things. And hey, for some of those things, notice many of my point styles here, many of my keys just go to something called default, whatever that means, and some actually match to explicit point style calls. All of them go to layers of various types, and this is all NCS compliant. A couple of cool things about the jump is, hey, we use utility symbols and if I go and, I could pick another one, but, it's Civil 3D, so I can actually go out and look at my utility pole for electrical utility poles. And, you'll see that it's actually got name symbols, that the name of the symbol that is employed is exactly what the name of the point style is. So, hey, wonder of wonders, right? Pretty easy to do point and shoot matching of graphics to everything else. So one of the great things that the jump allows you to do is this idea of a symbol set, of which you're seeing a little bit of piece, where the graphics can be changed, but the names can remain the same. And that is one of the wonderful things about model-based software, is that we could say, hey, I want to put in a utility pole, and I can determine what it looks like and use the same name, but change what that utility pole looks like to whatever my client wants. That takes a bit of work, but it's a hell of a lot less work than making a custom one for everybody. So that's one of the principles behind the jump. And this exists whether you like it or not. When you get a point, it's data. And now we have a picture connected to it, which is the point style, which can look like anything you want in the world. And we have the ability to say, hey, I want this stuff labeled. And in this model, the way things are, right, we have stuff in point groups. And, point groups have a very, very important thing, and it's called the point group order. And so based on this order, that's how your producer, Civil 3D, figures out what union rules, right, all your bad actors are going to apply. How are they going to be dressed? Okay, it also, the description key set also has an order which says, hey, what are their lines? In other words, what is their description going to read? Held in the format tab. Okay, so we have these two conflicting sets of order, right, which is confusing, and we have to be responsible to say, hey, I want it to look like this. So I'm going to do something really befuddling here, and those are Civil 3D points. They are a thing. They're not a, in your drawing. They were made from a data file. Civil 3D doesn't care about the data file they came from. Couldn't tell you where they came from once it got in here, right? And that works great. It's a great way to publish stuff. I can simply say, hey, let's go back and let's see, we edited point groups, we did all kinds of stuff here. Get rid of that create points and go all the way back and just yank all the point features out. Okay, so I still have nothing in my drawing. Okay, hopefully everybody, I can do an undo back all, but you all get the point. Okay, so I have no points in my drawing, but wait a minute, do I have points in my drawing? Right? You got to, tell the tool space, hey, what's the current state? Doesn't necessarily give you an immediate feedback. Got to do a refresh. Okay, so you're the director, right? And Civil 3D is doing lots of stuff, but it's trying not to do stuff that you don't want it to do. Okay, so now we have no points in our drawing. That's all kind of wildly cool. Other thing we got in Civil 3D is this thing called survey databases and survey points, which help us deal with the fact that we have to rectify things, we have to balance things, that way people shoot and go out and gather information, and we have a lot of ways to get and encapsulate data there. I'm going to open one of these databases. One of the little tricks over here in Survey, another thing they don't tell you is you can have a separate working folder from your project working folder where your data shortcuts are stored. Don't have to be in the same place, and you got to make sure you're pointing at the right place. Like in old LDT days, every one of these named databases that I have is actually a folder with files, and we happen to be using Microsoft SQL Express as the storage engine, and that creates a couple of weirdnesses here. which I've written posts about recently, and you should probably go out and check out. But the other real sneaky thing they don't tell you here is that you have a set of settings, and these are pretty complicated. Okay, all kinds of things, all kinds of integration can happen here. Once again, Civil 3D works on the idea of I have a plan, I know exactly what I'm going to do, I know what the data is, and I want this result. That is always the way it works, built into the whole idea behind it. So if you really don't have a plan and really haven't thought this thing out, it can be there for befuddling. So one of the nifty things is there's a whole like separate profile. Sorry, hit the wrong one. Right. Set of settings. You can store these settings. Right. So outside, you can both export and import these settings. Yeah, by default, they're stored down in a Civil 3D spot, but if you want things to work consistently, really good ideas to like fire up the survey profile, which is really what this does, and hooks you up to all the right stuff from the right place each and every time. We employ a project-based metaphor in the jump because that's the way the real world works, and a project done for surveying 25 miles of oil pipeline is completely different than a strip mall, for example. So we got a point file. I've already imported it. I have nothing in my drawing. So I have this data container outside of Civil 3D, sort of like we used to have in a points database, but it's a lot smarter than that. And I could actually take a look, and I threw it into a container that we call a network, and I can slap that thing into the drawing, and it's not going to look like much, to be honest with you. So I get probably almost can't see this. I just get a bunch of fuzzy dots because if you look carefully, my import event was actually a CSV file. So it's NEZDs, and that's what's in there. I'm going to remove that thing, right, which lets me see with that there is data. It gets me zoomed to it. And cool things about import events, which, by the way, you can run from a number of places in Civil 3D. On the Home tab, import survey data gets you to the wizard, which walks you through the process and lets you set up and build and put stuff in. And notice I could feed more data into my current survey database. I could also extract points and put them right out of my drawing. I could have put them in a survey database too. Now that I have them as a survey database, you'll notice this is a CSV file, but somehow, magically, figures also got created. So I can actually, this actually, a CSV file, like a fieldbook file, generated what? It generated line work for me? Oh yeah, no problem. So based on the descriptions, right, and something called the line work code set here, right, and a figure prefix database, right, which I happen to have current, I generated figures. And these are real things, real figures, editable, okay? And, they're connected to point locations. And so if I update point locations, etc., right, real deal. Okay, dynamically connected to my survey database if I want to. Now, suppose I really don't want I don't want the figures in my drawing. Civil 3D, I don't need that stuff. All right, little gotcha. I'll warn you of. So when you make a drawing, it says, wait a minute. It says I have a drawing. I'm going to select everything. Right. I took all the figures out. I'm going to use Control A here. If you're going to come back here, Control A and select all, and you'll see since I dropped in figures into my drawing, it created parcels. This is known bug, right, in 12 and 11 right now, and the figure prefix database, why is it doing that? It shouldn't. We'll go look here, and you will see that there's a little thing that says lot line. It's only supposed to make parcels when that box is checked, but obviously since none of them are checked, right, in my figure prefix database, it's still making them as parcels. So one of the things is if you use the survey database and pour stuff in and out of drawings, remember there is no real way right now to get rid of those figures, so you might want to get your database right and then put it into a drawing instead of ending up with a drawing with 20,000 figures in it, that parcels in it that don't really exist, because you can't find them, they're not there. If we go to the site collection, go to survey, there are no parcels, there is nothing here, and you have no way to really erase them without ruining your drawing. So, little word of warning. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, we were over in survey, and we want to put the points in. And we're obeying the same rules, right? When we make from survey observation data a point, if we want it manifested, it has to end up with an NAZ location, because that's what a point feature relies on. And then it's going to be connected once again to that whole little style engine here. And I have an order for my key sets. So this is the classic IOB key set, set of description keys. We actually give you more than this, but we don't want to clutter up the default template, so you can do things. And we can drag and drop new ones, delete the ones I don't care about, and we're really nice to people, and do things like separate out, if we look at the keys, the utility keys and those sorts of things. And the IOB has about, how many does it have here? Let me see. We got 153 in there. This is the default lines, 317. We got things like pavement words, so like everything you ever found on a painted on the street, we already got done for you. And a separate set. So there's quite a few description keys. Let's just say, wave our hands and say somewhere in the 700 to 800 range, all matched. And if we look at the big guy here, the one we've been using, it actually, we already saw, has a whole bunch of stuff set to styles, a look and feel, and a format. Okay, and with the default product, we give you the format, we give you the base format, we give you what the format means, we give them multiple versions of the format file, which for your actors is, hey, how it's going to be labeled, which is really important decision as to what I'm going to export to somebody if I want to export stuff. Well, we'll just leave things the way they were so that they're operating just like when I imported the points, and we're going to take the points and put them in the drawing. Now I could have made point groups and done some other things in here, but we're smart, we're sort of structured, and we got it all set up because we're using ILB. So all the points are going to come into my drawing, and where they go, okay, and I get, surprise, surprise, dang near almost exactly, in fact, if you look carefully, you get exactly the same result because I didn't change anything. I get symbols, and once again, I got these locations here that, because now the point groups have taken over how things look, all right, over in the prospector, whoops, okay, hey, you got to update some stuff, right? And some of the points just like disappear. They're there. There really is a point where it used to be. It's just right now the point groups are set up, because they are set up this way by default, right, to display nothing. So we're going to go and do a classic reorder here, so I can control the labels for everything all at once and slap all points to the top and say apply and say okay and say okay. Oh, well, now I get a little teeny X everywhere. Okay, and that's really a definition of the point group, and it has a relatively scaling point style assigned to it. Okay, and what does that mean? That means, if we edit it, that means it's always relative to the screen. Well, I'd really like them to be a little bit bigger. Okay, on general, and hit apply, say okay, and things automatically change. Right, little X's became slightly bigger X's. All right, and now for every single point, I'd really like to use the same label and jump chips with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of labels. And, we'll just do something like 45 degrees with description, the resolve description and the elevation, please, on everything. And say OK. And instantly, right, I can read what the resolve description was. As you can see, maybe I don't want that on my trees separate from my utility things. And so now, I just got some point group order stuff. So let's go and, take our all points and move it down. And we're going to slap it under my prop and controls. Okay. And so, and say apply. Say okay, and some things, by the way, the x's got bigger, okay, x's got smaller, okay, and now I'd like everything that falls into this point group, which actually has a set of properties, which, is a big long string, and little trick. If you think about it, and one of the things that we supply in the jump is this set of description keys. As you can see, we're doing some interesting things here, like using knots in the keys. Okay, and that ends up being a pretty complex string, and you certainly couldn't do it by checkboxes. So one of the things you may want to consider in terms of managing your point groups, right, is just copying and pasting these and keeping these things out in a notepad file so that you need a different set of description keys. You just make a new group and slap in the key from a notepad file. So, hey, there's my hot tip of the day. So we like to take our control group, which has got, key points in it. And one of the things I like to do about it is, it's may or may not get a graphic element there, but I certainly want those, done. We'll just pick something totally off the wall. And, I like them at 315, rotated with a broken line label, right? So they look different. Okay. And say okay, and I got all these found points here. They happen to fall into this group here, right? And really, what I'd like to do is do those sort of. All I really wants the description on those guys. Maybe I want the point number, but we'll just do something different, so I can get my labels to look like whatever I want them to look like, right? Doing it by point group. And of course, we can grab points. You can select points by point group. Okay, and that, right, collects all the points. And then I could say I'd like all those points rotated to a certain marker rotation or labeled, done differently. So you can actually do this stuff in 12, which is really, really cool, right, and manage rotations of groups of points. So it's really just getting the actors organized, right? Instead of, you can also do the horror of, pick a point. Sorry, I got a save going on. And, manually tweak this one point, okay, in terms of rotating just the label or rotating just the marker and all those sorts of things. You can, of course, do that, but the more you do that, the more you are confined to publish in a very specific and certain way. If you do it by point groups, a lot easier to manage. Looks like chaotic now because I haven't really paid too much attention to what actually I want. Well, what if I don't want any labels again? What do I do now? Well, hold it. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. I can do that. I don't really have to change all that fired much. I just got to find that stinking all points group, slap that up here, and hit apply. Say okay. And now say, hey, I don't want none. I don't want any label. You can make them all invisible and actually generate labels, but I really want none. Okay, no labels. Or, hey, even really sexy stuff like, hey, I want no plot labels. Okay, so I want labels, right, that actually appear but never plot. Okay. Okay, and they look like LDT points, so you can see them, but when you plot them, the labels don't show up. Okay, but we want none. Okay, and we want labels. And the reason I got to this point is if we're going to export points, one of the key issues, and we're going to hop over to IE here and go up here, and no, I'm not going to sign into my really cool BPOS site. We're just going to cheat real quick here and hop up to cadpilot.com. And if you want the exact, right, you can go up here and look for the points export. And mostly you're going to find a whole bunch of things. And here's the civil lobotomy for points, right? There's a dumbing down point 1, 2, and basically, how to get this all done, right? Here's the basic framework. Actually, how do you do it? Okay, is all pretty much done in step by step. Okay. And one of the key things to recognize when we're talking about exporting point data is that in AutoCAD, those things need to become what? We want those point style things to become just symbols, and we want the labels to become mtext. And to do that, they are now meshed together in this thing called the point feature, where the label and the symbol and the data that underlies that are all kind of tied together in a wrapper. Okay, they're all bundled together now into this thing that I can do all that wonderful changing stuff to. But when I dumb it down to AutoCAD, I got to get down to the dumb block, and I got to get down to just, right, the mtext. So the way to do this is very simple. Make drawings, then make the parts and put the parts back together into a drawing. So at this point, I have a drawing with no labels, but all the symbols and the way I want the symbols to look. And I determine that by having the right description key set with pointing at the right symbols to get the right symbols and running that with the points that I want to put in, right, into my drawing. Okay, so data, description, key set, and I got my point group set up, and I made sure that there are no labels being produced at all, and now I save as. Probably not the best way to go. If we want your best bet, right, if you want constructive results, is AutoCAD, and then you pick a format. When you do this, it's going to use an AutoCAD DWT file that you've set up in your file settings. It's going to find the first ACAD.dwt file it can, right, in your search folders, and export to AutoCAD 10. And we're just going to name it this. I'm going to leave it where I'm working. Better remember where I am working. Where am I? I'm down inside my project, existing conditions survey EX. Okay. And, ACAD dot, gives my drawing name, puts the predicate on there, right? These are actually settings, right? Okay. But, okay, we'll leave that alone. Okay. And say save. And is that the drawing I'm working in? And you'll notice you get a W block box. So it really W blocked it out, okay, to create the drawing. Is that the drawing I'm working in right now? No. So, obviously if I'm going to open this thing, and I'm going to go back and, where did I save that? Okay, it's called ACAD, my points drawing. Okay. And if you open this points drawing, right, looks, hey, wonder of wonders, things look, right, exactly like I wanted them to look like, right? And one of the things that AutoCAD and the whole deal is trying to do is make sure that graphically you get out whatever you told it to get out. Now I had those V boxes, those V points, and they end up Not exactly what I wanted, right? In fact, what did I end up with? You end up with a block reference, right? So everything is wrappered, okay, in a block, okay? And if you had labels, they would show up too, all wrappered in this block. So, one of the key things is, oops, I really needed to make sure, okay, when I make this drawing, that those other points, right, if I want a graphic element, right, I better make sure they have a graphic element. So let's, whoops, let's close that thing. That's not exactly what I wanted. Okay, what I did want, and how would I get that? Okay, properties of the point groups. I got my all points at top. Okay, so all the points that didn't get a symbol by my description keys, right? I want to have, and I don't want to have that thing. And in fact, a couple of words of warning, right? In terms of the point styles and how they turn off, relative's a bad idea. Anything that uses a custom marker, bad idea, because it'll become line work. So you really do want to use some kind of AutoCAD block there in the point style. And so we're going to just pick a V-point cross and apply it to everywhere. And this gets me a real block, right? Which happens to look like a little cross. Makes most people happy. And notice I haven't saved my current drawing. I don't care about the drawing I'm in. All right. And we want to save as, no, we wanted to export. That was it. Drawing, export to 10. Notice I can go back to 12. Yes, I want to overwrite that drawing. Yes, please. Grabs just my stuff, swats it all back into AutoCAD stuff, right? And we want to open that drawing up, right? And if you're going back release, don't do this and 10. Okay, you gotta let it regen. And so now I got all the symbols, but they're all, right? They are all wrappered in this thing called the block reference. And that looks exactly like what I want, but you'll notice it's not exactly the block reference you expected. It's all wrappered in, an unnamed block. Okay, so one of the things you got to do is, pick almost anything, go select similar, right? And it gives you a big, huge pile, right? Did that select all that stuff? Wait a minute. Okay, another way to do this, hey, hey, we're in AutoCAD, right? Okay, I want everything called the block reference. Grab them all. Please include the selection set. Grab all those things. Make sure I got every single little teeny bit and piece. No windows involved. And now that I got them, I simply want to explode them. Now, why am I exploding them? Only to make them, yes, no kidding. Okay, only to make them make sense, right? And remove the wrapper, okay? That was designed to keep the label attached to the symbol and all that other kind of stuff. So now I end up with, based on the style and the way it was, you notice it's going to a boundary, it's a block, and I actually get the real block gets transferred over. Okay, so I end up with real blocks, right, based on what blocks I used, stuff going to real layers, right, and it is a real block, which behaves like a classic LDT, dropped in thing. So step A. So I've got that, got my blocks all done. Hey, and now I got to get the labels. Well, I think we figured out how to do that already. Okay, so got that guy. Probably want to save this. This is in 10, right? And close. And now I certainly don't need the symbols, right? Okay, so how do I get rid of all the dang symbols? Okay, well, one way to do it is, hey, wait a minute. I brought those in because I was smart and used a survey database. I can remove all the points from my drawing. Really? Yes. Okay. So they didn't disappear. I can, pull them all out, and now I don't have any points in my drawing. Or in the prospector, no points, right? Okay, now I need slightly crafted little bit of different stuff. I need a description key set that generates exactly the labels but no symbols. And, okay, the jump uses very simple naming convention, so I can see I got point styles for this key one, which is doing most of the symbol work. Notice it has assigned point styles. So I need another description key set. And I got a number of ways to do this. I can use a classic drag and drop. I can also, because I know I've got one out there, I got a drawing that's got it, I can use insert and this is the jump. Here's my project. Here's my resource folder. I got styles. Hey, I got description key sets. And there happens to be a drawing that contains only that one, another description key set. And if I wanted a different set of symbols, I could run the same process, get rid of description key sets over here and put the ones in I want. So, hey, notice that we have cool things like trees, species, based ones, and some other cool stuff up here, right? But we're going to throw this guy in here. And a couple of little important things, we want to just drop it in and explode it while we do it, so we get rid of all that stuff, right? And whoops, hey, 0.0, right? Forgot to check the checkbox to say put it all in, and it will tell me that, oh, there's all kinds of other cool stuff wrapped up in there, like the blocks and anything referenced by the style. So it all comes across, and it won't overwrite whatever my current point definitions and point style definitions are. And refresh. And now I have a DD, right, in here as well. So let's go and reorder the groups, and we want that nlines DD that I just put in there, and I want to put it to the top so all those keys match to this one, and say apply, say okay. And I could, if I was really smart, I'd probably want to delete the ones that I don't care about out of this one, but we'll leave them there and show that the stack works. And hey, put the points, insert them back into the drawing. Oh my gosh, some of them are big. Okay, right? Okay, so there's scaling stuff going on because of the keys still had scales. Oh, okay, well, probably don't want to do that, but those are just the symbols, right? Those are just the symbols, right? And why am I getting symbols at all? Of course, it's my point group, right? Want to make sure I run my update thing, find out if it's real. Okay, so I am getting still symbols, and it's getting me my V cross points. Oh, that's where that's coming from, right? Okay, so we don't want it to put any, right, there. And I'm going to do this simply in terms of the labels. In other words, I can go through the point groups, make point groups that give me different labels saying different things for different kinds of things, right? And lots of complexity here. And we'll just do something simple and just say, hey, I only want the elevations, right? Okay, on all the points, please. And, they're my labels. And everything that falls in there, right, is going to get a little teeny label, right? And where's that update? Okay, and there are all those ones, but how come I don't have some points? So obviously, we could check a couple of things here. Let's just throw the figures in. I'm doing this just to visualize stuff, right? Okay, so up here, I'm only getting labels on certain things, right? I'm not getting labels everywhere. So what does that tell me? Well, that tells me something's wrong with my point group definitions here, right? Oh, got properties. Okay, elevation only. What's in here include include all points. I really can't edit this point group, by the way, right? Other than change those styles. It's got everything in it. I could do things with point groups. It's got include. It's got a point list. Looks like, pretty much everything's fallen into this pile, right? Should have like 3,600. So, I'm befuddled, right? Well, no, we didn't change anything. And I ran an update. And what's the last thing I got to do? Okay, I ran a region, and still, why don't I get a label everywhere? Bug? What am I missing? What could be doing this? Well, a couple of little tricks. You can always make another point group. Okay. All right. And say, I really don't want anything, and I really do want just that label. And what was that thing? We'll just go, how about elevation only? That was what we were doing. And hit apply. And what do we want to include in here? Right? Point groups. I don't want to do that. I want to include, everything greater than 0. Right? Apply. Okay, you notice that's all points. Okay, and wonder of wonders, hey, I get my labels. So, one of the little things got to kind of watch out for is sometimes that all point group, because Civil 3D makes it, holds it, controls it, and does stuff with it, you may not get the result. Also, want to make another point here is that when I did that insert explode, that drawing happened to contain a whole bunch of point groups. Okay, and when I did that insert and why I ended up with the weird labels is because I ended up with all these additional point groups because I wasn't paying attention when I made that, and it does have point groups in it, and I forgot to pull them all out, right? So now I got near duplicate point groups all over the place, and I got to get rid of these, okay? Better yet, have a better crafted drawing out there, right, without the point groups in it. Okay, so one of the reasons that I simply got the bad result was that I did not refresh my tool space. Remember, up to the beginning? Refresh your tool space, you're the director, and then you would have seen I got all these other point groups, right? And actually you sort of almost have 2 duplicate point groups, all points. So got to be careful, got to pay attention to the detail. But at this point, hey, okay, at least I accomplished what I needed. Okay, and I need to get rid of the figure. Well, wait a minute, I could throw the figures out there too, but better do those as a separate thing. So let's remove those as a drawing. Obey the rules, be smart. Okay, so now I got in my drawing only the labels, right? And file, export to, now we're really bored, and we can do this. And okay, my points, and this is my points, and I like to name these labels, right? Okay, and export that, and we get the little pink W block, rips off all the wrappers. And maybe my Civil 3D will come back. Okay, and once again, I have the same teeny little cleanup process, open, there's my point labels. We don't even have to think about it. We could actually make a script that does this, right? And I gotta wait for my drawing to reach. I want more memory. I want more memory. Okay, and we want to select everything in my drawing that is a block reference, and I really don't care what it is because I know what's in there. There's nothing in there except for block references. And what did I want to do? Oh, yeah, I want to explode those. Yep, and you know, if it's 50,000 points, you're going to be here for a second, right? Then when you get them all exploded, they are now dink. Okay, and we're doing an autosave here, and you will see now they are a classic MTEX label, right? With whatever style you assign to the label and all that other stuff passes through. And so now you've got an elevation label at every single one. This could have been a whole range of different labels determined by point group, expressly rotated the way you want them. All that stuff is just detail mechanics, right, with the labels. And now how do I put them together? Okay, first thing, got to remember, better save this thing. Okay, and you know, now I want to close that thing, and I could have gone the other way, right? And now I wanted to open, probably should have just done it in that one, but I want to open this one. Maybe I want to create a separate drawing, okay, and slap those two in. You have one more option, right, for my points, and if the people you're going to use LDT in, I want things as attributed blocks, right? Points, right? Create Kogo, create blocks from Kogo points is the command you employ. It will ask you, and it will make up a block for you. If you want to go to LDT ones, I suggest you just go grab one of your old LDT ones, drag and drop it in and point to that. In this, it will say, give it all, you know, what points do you want? I want a window, or I want them all, and make a new block, and you will not like the result of this. So if you know, you should know exactly what you want, and that block should be in your current drawing, and where do you want to put it in terms of a layer, and that will actually manufacture a block, right, with attributes if you want from the data based on what you did. And then you'll end up with both those and label symbols or whatever. So be careful about getting rid of all the stuff before you once again W block out or save as or export to, right, the blocks. And now you just throw the drawings together. Whole process, right? Labels probably take more than any other thing in terms of making it readable and all that, but the whole process shouldn't be an elaborate process, particularly if you've generated all the labels and got the point groups in order and thought all that process out. Generating the labels and exporting all this out is, bang, 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 bang. And the cool thing is, once you get this process down, just about every other Civil 3D feature works in the same exact metaphor. So you have nothing else to learn, not another process to do to produce an R14 from Civil 3D. God forbid you should need it. Okay. You should also recognize that Export 2, right, is actually really good at GGN files if you understand understand map export, right? And that is a better way to do this than this export too. So maps got map export, which since you're in Civil 3D you got, and how would I find out what that command's called, right? Map export. Okay, yeah, this is a little more elaborate. Okay, what do you want to do? Okay, I want, a MicroStation V8 file, okay, and, helps to have all the seed files and all that stuff that you're going to, but pump it out to DGN really isn't any more difficult than going out to AutoCAD. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is produce the AutoCAD output and then go over to MicroStation. You will probably find it faster and easier than doing it direct out of Civil 3D. Save as DGN will give you a very nice picture that shows up in DGN. Once again, they'll all be wrappered, sort of. They'll all be in cells. Right, same sort of effect that we saw in AutoCAD happens over a MicroStation, and they may not like that almost non-editable result, but that may be all they need to print on top of what you deliver to them, which, once again, returning to our slideshow, give them what they need. Okay, so once again, just to remind you, you can go up to cadpilot.com, points export, or civil lobotomy. There are more than one or two files there. I also encourage you to go search and look for traffic lights and look at that post, which I actually didn't write. It's one of John Stossel's that's extremely interesting about how we look at the world and how it affects what we do. Remember, you will have to have and produce multiple drawings. A symbols drawing, right? I need the box, okay? And then the point data and or the labels, because you may just need the attributed blocks and not the labels if that makes them happy. Using a crafted survey DB file, right? Survey database or point files. We could have used either, but a survey DB has that wonderful in-out capability. So I usually say, hey, make yourself a survey DB. You can make it literally from a drawing, right? Open a database, pull the points out of a drawing and stick them in a database. Really? Yes. Okay, and put them back in as you need them. And you will definitely need crafted, thought out description key sets and point groups to do the key formatting stuff. What do you want the labels to say? Well, one of the cool things about description keys, they allow you to change what you want it to say based on the client. So if you use keys, but he wants it to say that, if you know what they want it to say, really easy to translate from your keys to their keys with a description key set. Okay, and once again, hey, that critical management, you're the director. Right key set, right point groups, get the result you want rapidly. It's published on demand. So, hey, what I always recommend, well, I'll take a couple of questions here, is you get yourself an instant on basic because it actually works. It really does work, right? Move uphill when it's time. Okay. Hey, it looks like Nick's got a question. Surprise. Hi, Nick. Let's see. Now I got to read the fine print here, which is always fun. What are the point label styles for your no-show? Yeah. Okay. So what Nick's asking is, okay, I have a point group, and I dumped the other drawing in here, so I got no-show that one, and typically, this is at the top of the stack and everything's invisible. Okay, or it's none. Okay, so you don't get any objects, and there is a difference between invisible and none, by the way. Okay, so use a no-show group up here to say I don't want, if we zoom in on my current drawing, you have locations like where we got an intersection where we got just so much point data that was collected to establish the curves and all that stuff. Don't even need to show all that stuff. So some of those points are going to end up in the no-show group, and I just don't want them to have labels. I don't want them to have anything because it's just like way too much information, I guess is the best way to put it. I was using and employing the point group order, right, of my all points. Notice the other reason was that my all points group right, because I inserted all those extra ones, wasn't at the top of my stack. Okay, if I'd moved it to the top of my stack, right, whatever was applied to it would have actually worked. Let me prove that to you. It looked like it was at the top, but I didn't refresh, and I didn't see that I had all these new point groups that I really didn't want. All right, here's my point group 2. Let's just get rid of that thing. Okay, so it's not applied anymore. Okay, and is all points really controlling all this stuff? Okay, we had the same one, so let's pick something else, right? 0 degrees, elevation and description, right? With an underline. Okay, and so you can see it's now controlling all the points. Okay, what the label looks like, just to be different. Okay, so hopefully, Dick, that answered your question. If so, hey, raise your hand. Right, cool. If you got another question, you can type it, and I'll do. If you want to raise your hand and go online, we can do it live too. And if not, right, we've been chatting at you for about an hour. Okay, and hopefully you learned something about Civil 3D points, and hopefully, hey, maybe now you have another reason to, hey, go up online, do the simplest, smartest thing you did for yourself and your company, which is get yourself an IOP and actually get some work done. Always remember, you can always give us a call, 1-800-584-1506. There's my email address, sales@cadpilot.com. Sooner or later gets to me, right? And support@cadpilot.com, all work, right? So you don't have to remember any strange spelling. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.